black belt laughed as he tied his gloves. He looked across the gym and saw a quiet man stretching in the corner, Manny Pacquiao. With a grin, he shouted, "Hey champ, how about a friendly spar? I promise I'll go easy on you." Everyone burst out laughing. Cameras came out. They thought it was harmless fun, a joke between fighters. But Manny didn't laugh. He just smiled, nodded once, and stepped into the ring. 10 seconds later, the laughter stopped. Because what happened next would teach everyone in that gym a lesson they'd never forget. It was a quiet afternoon at a small, local gym on the edge of town, the kind of place where the air smells of sweat, hard work, and dreams. A few young fighters were training, their gloves thudding softly against old worn-out punching bags. In the corner of the room, an old poster of Manny Pacquiao hung on the wall, slightly faded but still powerful, a reminder of what true greatness looks like. Then, as if destiny itself had planned it, the door opened. The chatter stopped. Manny Pacquiao walked in. No bodyguards, no flashy clothes, no reporters following him. Just the same humble smile the world had seen 1,000 times before. He came not as a celebrity, but as a teacher, ready to spend his afternoon giving advice, signing gloves, and reminding every fighter that humility is stronger than pride. The young boxers surrounded him instantly, eyes wide, hearts racing. For them, this was more than a surprise, and it was a dream. Manny shook hands, patted shoulders, and even helped one boy fix his stance. He moved quietly, his presence calm but powerful, like the ocean before a storm. But not everyone was impressed. At the far end of the gym stood Ryan, a tall, confident Taekwondo black belt in his late 20s. He was known for his kicks, his arrogance, and his habit of showing off whenever new people came around. To him, boxing seemed limited. He whispered to his friends, smirking, "Come on, he's just a boxer. I could handle him easy." His friends laughed, feeding his ego. One of them nudged him, saying, "Then go prove it." Ryan straightened his belt and walked toward the ring. Manny noticed him approach and smiled warmly, unaware of the mockery brewing behind the grin. Ryan called out loudly so everyone could hear, "Hey champ, how about a few rounds for fun? Let's give the guys a show." The room went silent. All eyes turned toward Manny. He simply nodded once, still calm, still smiling. "Sure," he said softly. "Just for fun." The young fighters cheered, but Ryan's grin widened for another reason. He thought this would be his moment to shine. "Before we continue, tell me, where are you watching from? Comment your country below and let's see how far Manny's respect reaches." The gym floor echoed with anticipation as Ryan climbed into the ring. He moved with confidence, bouncing lightly on his feet, his black belt gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His friends gathered around holding their phones, ready to record what they thought would be a funny video. A martial artist showing off against an aging boxing legend. Ryan cracked his neck and threw a few flashy kicks into the air, drawing cheers from the small crowd. He turned toward Manny and smirked. "Don't worry, champ," he said. "I'll go easy on you." Manny just nodded, lacing up his gloves. His expression never changed, calm, humble, peaceful. No anger, no pride. Just that quiet focus that had carried him through wars inside the ring for decades. When he stepped onto the mat, the entire gym seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't a pay-per-view arena. No commentators, no flashing lights. Just one man's arrogance meeting another man's discipline. Ryan walked to the center, extending his hand. "Let's make this interesting," he said with a grin. "First to land a clean shot wins." Manny smiled faintly and shook his hand. "Sure," he said. "But remember, it's just for fun." Ryan nodded, but deep inside, he wasn't planning on fun. He wanted to prove a point. That technique could beat fame, that a young black belt could embarrass a world champion. He'd already pictured it in his head. The video going viral, his friends tagging him, the comments filled with laughter and praise. The bell rang. Ryan made the first move, fast and confident. He threw a high kick toward Manny's head. A flashy move, full of confidence but light on control. Manny barely moved. With the smallest step back, the kick sliced through empty air. The crowd gasped. Ryan tried again, a spinning kick this time, and missed completely. Manny hadn't even raised his guard. He was studying him, reading his rhythm, like a chess master memorizing an opponent's opening moves. Ryan's friends shouted from outside the ring, "Come on, man. Show him what a real fighter looks like. Ryan grinned, his pride still intact. He bounced twice, feinted left, then lunged forward with a punch. Manny slipped it effortlessly, countering with a soft tap on Ryan's shoulder. It wasn't even a real hit, just a reminder. Ryan froze. That tiny movement, that effortless precision, it told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't just some retired boxer. This was Manny Pacquiao, but his ego wouldn't let him back down. Lucky move, he muttered under his breath, circling again. He rushed in with another combination, kick, punch, punch. Every single one missed. The gym grew quieter. Even the punching bags in the corner seemed to stop swinging. All eyes were on the two men in the ring, the arrogant challenger and the humble legend. Manny finally lifted his guard. His movements were slower now, more deliberate, more focused. He didn't want to hurt him, but he needed to teach him. Ryan lunged forward again, and this time Manny moved. A perfect left jab, quick, clean, precise. It connected squarely on Ryan's glove, pushing it right back into his chest. Not even hard, but with enough force to make him lose balance. The sound echoed, a thud that silenced every whisper. Ryan stumbled backward, blinking fast, trying to process what had just happened. 10 seconds, that's all it had taken. Manny stepped forward slowly, not aggressive, just steady. Relax, he said softly. You're tense. Control your breathing. Ryan nodded automatically like a student receiving a lesson. He adjusted his stance, trying to regain focus, but before he could move again, Manny threw another jab, this time to the side of his guard. It wasn't hard. It wasn't fast. But it landed exactly where Ryan wasn't looking. The entire gym erupted in gasps. Ryan froze, eyes wide, completely stunned. He realized something then. Manny wasn't even fighting seriously. These weren't punches meant to win. They were meant to teach. Manny lowered his gloves and smiled. Good balance, he said. But you're fighting angry. That's when you lose control. Ryan felt his chest tighten. The arrogance he walked in with was gone. His friends, once cheering loudly, now stood silent, some with their phones slowly dropping to their sides. No one wanted to laugh anymore. Manny took a small step forward and extended his glove. Want to go one more round? He asked kindly. Ryan shook his head slowly. His voice cracked when he spoke. No, sir. I think I've learned enough. Manny nodded, giving a gentle pat on his shoulder. It's not about winning, he said. It's about respect for your opponent and for yourself. Ryan lowered his eyes. He didn't feel like a black belt anymore. He felt like a student again, reminded of why he started training in the first place. The room stayed silent for a few seconds until someone in the back began clapping. Then another. Then the entire gym. Ryan bowed deeply. Manny, he said, thank you for the lesson. Manny smiled and replied, always stay humble. That's the hardest belt to earn. The crowd cheered. Ryan's friends weren't laughing anymore. They were filming with a different expression now. Not amusement, but awe. Because they had just witnessed something rare. Not a fight, but a moment of truth. The echo of the crowd's applause slowly faded. For a moment, there was silence. That kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself is thinking. Ryan stood there, sweat dripping down his face, his breath shallow. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He looked across the ring at Manny, who stood as calm as he had been from the start. Not a single drop of anger in his eyes, no arrogance, no pride. Just respect. Just discipline. The same discipline that had carried him from the dusty streets of the Philippines to the biggest arenas in the world. Ryan's chest rose and fell quickly. His friends were still recording, but now they didn't look so amused. One of them whispered, Man, he didn't even hit you hard. He was holding back. Another said softly, Bro, you got lucky he went easy. Ryan wanted to say something back, but the truth hit harder than any punch ever could. They were right. Manny had gone easy on him. Not because he couldn't hit harder, but because he chose not to. That realization sank deep. He felt his pride, that sharp, noisy thing that had driven him to show off, crumble into pieces inside his chest. Manny walked toward him, slow and steady, the sound of his boxing shoes light against the mat. He stopped right in front of Ryan and spoke quietly, almost like a father to a son. Fighting isn't about proving who's stronger, he said. It's about proving who's wiser. Ryan swallowed hard, his throat dry. I thought I could show off, he admitted, his voice trembling. I wanted to make my friends laugh. Manny smiled gently. There's nothing wrong with confidence, he said, as long as it doesn't turn into disrespect. Those words hit deeper than the jab earlier. Because in that moment, Ryan wasn't looking at a celebrity. He was standing in front of a man who had fought his way through life with humility, who carried greatness not as a crown, but as a responsibility. The young fighters watching from the corner didn't move. Even the sound of the heavy bags had stopped. Everyone was frozen, listening, absorbing every word. Manny continued, his tone soft but firm. You train your body to fight. But remember, your heart must stay calm. Anger makes you blind. Pride makes you weak. But respect, that's what keeps you strong. Ryan nodded slowly. His eyes started to water, not from pain, but from something deeper. Shame, realization, and maybe a little bit of gratitude. He looked down at his black belt. It suddenly felt heavier than usual, like it didn't belong to him anymore. He untied it, folded it carefully in his hands, and offered it to Manny. Sir, he said, his voice breaking, I don't deserve this. Not after how I acted. Please take it. I disrespected a legend. The room went dead silent. Even the air felt still. Manny looked at the belt, then back at Ryan. He shook his head. No, my friend. Keep it, he said softly. It's not the belt that matters. It's the lesson behind it. Ryan froze, unsure what to say. Manny smiled again, that same gentle, forgiving smile that had made him a hero both inside and outside the ring. You've already earned something better today, he continued. You've earned wisdom, and that's something no belt can buy. The crowd broke into applause again, not the loud, chaotic kind from earlier, but slow, respectful claps that grew stronger with every second. One by one, even Ryan's friends joined in. The gym owner, an old man with silver hair, walked up to the ring and spoke quietly. I've seen a lot of fights in my life, he said. But this wasn't a fight. This was a lesson. Ryan stepped down from the ring, his head lowered, and sat on the bench nearby. He looked at Manny again. The way he carried himself, how he didn't gloat, didn't brag. Manny was helping another young boxer with his stance already, as if nothing had happened. No attention, no spotlight, just humility in action. Ryan whispered to himself, That's real strength. That's what I want to be. A few minutes later, he walked over to Manny and said quietly, Sir, can I train under you someday? Manny turned to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Of course, he said. But remember, training starts here. He tapped Ryan's chest and right over his heart. Before you learn how to fight others, you must learn how to fight your ego. Ryan nodded firmly, a tear escaping down his cheek. Thank you, he whispered. Manny smiled again and went back to helping the younger kids like nothing had changed. But for Ryan, everything had. As he left the gym that evening, the sunlight hit his face through the door. He paused, took a deep breath, and smiled faintly. He had come in as a show-off. He was leaving as a student. And behind him, one of his friends looked into the camera and said quietly, This video isn't about who won or lost. It's about respect. By the next morning, the gym wasn't quiet anymore. It was buzzing. Everyone was talking about the video, the one Ryan's friend had uploaded the night before. A 10-second clip that showed Manny Pacquiao dodging, moving, and controlling the spar like time itself had slowed down. No arrogance. No knockout. Just calm precision and humility that silenced everyone watching. The clip spread faster than wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube shorts. People couldn't stop replaying the moment where Manny smiled after Ryan's failed kick. It wasn't mockery, it was mercy. That smile carried a message the world instantly understood. Comments started pouring in. Thousands of them. That's real strength. Manny didn't fight with anger, he fought with grace. He could have humiliated him, but he chose to teach him. Respect from the Philippines. This man just gave the world another masterclass in humility. Even fighters from around the world reacted to it. A famous MMA coach commented, "That's how you handle disrespect and with control, not chaos." Ryan woke up to hundreds of messages on his phone. At first, he didn't want to open them, but curiosity got the better of him. He scrolled, and what he saw broke him a little, but in a good way. Some mocked him, sure, calling him the guy who challenged Pacquiao. But most comments weren't about humiliation. They were about change. People wrote things like, "Respect to Ryan for stepping up and owning it. It takes courage to admit you were wrong. We all have an ego until life teaches us humility." Ryan just sat there staring at the screen. For the first time, he didn't feel defensive. He felt grateful. He replayed the video again, the exact moment Manny could have ended it but didn't. Instead, Manny smiled and stepped back, giving him time to breathe. That single act changed everything. Later that day, Ryan returned to the gym. When he walked in, people looked up, not with judgment but with curiosity. He went straight to the heavy bag, wrapped his hands, and started hitting. Not with power, but with rhythm. Calm, focused, deliberate. Every punch carried a silent promise to be better. The gym owner noticed and nodded approvingly. "You learned the real art, son," he said softly. Ryan smiled faintly. "Yeah," he replied. And it wasn't about fighting. Meanwhile, Manny had no idea how viral the video had become. He wasn't scrolling social media or checking likes. He was at a small training camp, helping a few young boxers with footwork, when a young fan ran up to him waving his phone and saying, "Sir Manny, the internet's going crazy about your spar." Manny just laughed lightly. "I'm glad they liked it," he said, tying a boy's glove. "But I hope they understand why it happened." The boy looked confused. "Why, sir?" Manny smiled gently. "Because sometimes people think fighting is about ego, but real strength, it's about patience. It's not who hits harder, it's who stays calmer when pride comes knocking." The boy nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Manny placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember, son, the moment you lose respect for others, you lose respect for yourself." Those words, humble, quiet, but powerful, spread just like his punches once did. Clips of that conversation appeared online too, paired with emotional music and captions like, "The heart of a true champion. Power is nothing without humility. Manny Pacquiao, teaching the world once again." By the end of the week, the video had crossed 10 million views. Reaction videos poured in, from martial artists, motivational speakers, and even pastors. Each one said the same thing. This wasn't a fight. It was a message. Ryan eventually recorded his own short clip. He sat in the same gym, this time with no arrogance and just honesty. He said, "I challenged Manny Pacquiao as a joke. I thought I'd get a few laughs, maybe some views. But instead I got a lesson that changed me. He could have crushed me, but he didn't. He showed me what it means to be a real warrior." That video went viral too, and for the first time people weren't laughing at him. They were learning from him. This man grew from it. Respect, we all make mistakes. It's how you respond that defines you. Manny taught him, but he listened. That's rare these days. Manny later saw the video and smiled. He didn't comment, didn't repost. He just whispered softly, "Good, he understands now." And that's what made Manny Pacquiao different. He didn't just fight in the ring, and he fought for people's hearts. He showed that being a champion isn't about the title. It's about character. So now let's ask you, where are you watching this from? And what do you think defines a real fighter? Power or respect? Weeks passed since that day. The world had already moved on to new stories, new headlines. But for Ryan, that 10-second moment inside the ring with Manny Pacquiao never left his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he could still see it. Manny's calm smile, his steady stance, his patient movement. It wasn't just a memory, it was a mirror. A reflection of everything Ryan wasn't at that moment, and everything he now wanted to become. He started training differently. Gone were the days of loud music and showing off in front of his friends. Now he trained in silence. He focused on breathing, form, and respect. The same respect he had once lacked. When others came into the gym, he greeted them politely. He even began helping new fighters with their technique, correcting their stances just like Manny had corrected his. One evening, the gym owner, the same old man who'd witnessed the spar, watched quietly from the corner. He smiled to himself and said, "He's changing." Ryan wasn't training to impress anymore. He was training to improve. Sometimes after closing time, he'd stay back alone. He'd stand in front of the heavy bag, stare at it, and whisper to himself, "Control, not chaos. Respect, not pride. Then he'd throw a punch, not with anger but with peace. One night after an exhausting session, he sat down on the gym floor and opened his phone. He scrolled through the video again, the one that had gone viral. But this time, he didn't feel embarrassment. He felt gratitude. In the comments, people still talked about Manny's humility, but they also talked about his growth. You can see it in his eyes. He learned. This guy turned a loss into a lesson. Respect, brother. We all fall. It's how we rise that matters. Ryan smiled faintly and whispered, "Yeah, it really does." A few weeks later, a message popped up in his inbox. It was from a youth center in Manila. "We've seen your story. Would you like to come speak to our students about humility and discipline?" Ryan stared at the message, speechless. He had never imagined being invited to talk about humility. But deep down he knew this was his moment, not to prove himself, but to give back. So he said yes. When he arrived at the small gym in Manila, the walls were covered with pictures of young fighters, most of them barefoot, training with second-hand gloves. But their eyes, full of hunger and hope, reminded him of something Manny once said, "Never forget where you started." He stood in front of the group, nervous but determined. "Some of you might know me," he began. "Yeah, I'm the guy who challenged Manny Pacquiao as a joke." A few kids chuckled softly. Ryan smiled too. But what I learned that day changed me. I thought fighting was about being the strongest. I thought ego made you powerful. But I was wrong. True strength doesn't come from muscles. It comes from respect. From patience. From knowing when not to fight. The room went silent. Even the kids stopped fidgeting. They listened, not because he was famous, but because he was real. Ryan continued, "Manny Pacquiao could have embarrassed me in front of everyone, but he didn't. He showed mercy. And that mercy, that moment of grace, taught me more than any punch ever could." The kids clapped. Some even smiled, their eyes wide with inspiration. One little boy raised his hand and asked, "Sir, did it hurt?" Ryan laughed gently. "Yeah," he said, "but not the way you think. The punch didn't hurt. My pride did. And sometimes pain is just the body's way of teaching your heart a lesson." After the session, as Ryan packed his bag, the youth center coach walked up to him. "Pacquiao would be proud," he said. Ryan paused for a moment, then replied, "He already is, not because I fought him, but because I learned from him." That night, he posted one last message on his social media. Simple, honest, and powerful. Humility is a stronger weapon than ego. Thank you, Manny Pacquiao, for reminding me what being a fighter truly means. The post went viral again, not because of drama, but because of truth. People commented, "He finally gets it." This is growth. From mockery to mastery, respect. Even Manny saw it. Someone showed it to him while he was training a group of kids. He read it quietly, smiled, and simply said, "Good. Another fighter found his way." He didn't share it, didn't make a speech. That wasn't his style. For Manny, respect didn't need attention. It just needed action. As the sun set that evening, Ryan walked out of the youth gym with his head high, his heart calm. He knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. He wasn't chasing fame anymore. He was chasing purpose. He glanced at the sky, whispered a small prayer, and smiled. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting against anything. He was fighting for something, his character. And that's the moment he truly became a fighter. The sun had barely risen when Ryan laced up his gloves again. The gym was empty, just the sound of his own breathing echoing against the walls. The same gym where pride once lived, now felt peaceful. Each punch he threw carried something different. No anger, no showmanship, only gratitude. He paused between rounds, looked around and smiled. A few new fighters were arriving, young, eager, eyes full of dreams. He waved them in, showed them how to wrap their hands, just like Manny once showed him. He was no longer the man trying to prove something. He was the man trying to pass something on. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, in General Santos City, Manny Pacquiao was finishing his morning run. The streets were quiet, except for the sound of his steady footsteps and the faint cheer of locals who always waved when he passed by. He waved back, smiling humbly, the same smile that had disarmed Ryan in the ring. Manny stopped near a small chapel, removed his cap, and whispered a short prayer. Not for victory, not for glory, but for peace. Peace in his country. Peace in people's hearts. Peace in every fighter who forgot that fighting isn't about hate. He'd fought in front of millions, stood under bright lights, and heard his name chanted across the world. But now, he found more meaning in silence, in moments like these, far from the noise. When a local reporter asked him later that day, "Sir Manny, that viral sparring video, how do you feel about it now?" Manny smiled faintly. "It wasn't about the spar," he said. "It was about showing patience when others expect anger. That's the real fight. Controlling yourself." Those words spread online again, attached to clips of him training kids, helping charities, and laughing with people in the streets. The story of the black belt who challenged Manny Pacquiao became more than a viral moment. It became a lesson shared across the world. Months later, something unexpected happened. Ryan received an invitation to a charity boxing event in Manila. The card read, "Fight for Respect, a benefit for underprivileged youth." And below, a note signed in simple handwriting, "Would love for you to join us, not to fight, but to teach. MP." Ryan froze when he read the initials, MP Manny Pacquiao. He smiled and whispered, "Of course." When he arrived, the place was packed. Hundreds of kids, families, and local fighters gathered to watch exhibitions, hear stories, and learn about discipline. Ryan stood at the edge of the ring, nervous but smiling. Then from the other side, Manny walked in. No entourage, no flash. Just that same calm energy that made everyone instantly quiet. He walked straight to Ryan, shook his hand, and said, "Good to see you again, my friend." Ryan bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for inviting me, sir." Manny looked around at the kids and said, "I didn't invite you to fight this time. I invited you to inspire." Ryan's chest tightened with emotion. He nodded slowly. They stood side by side as the event began. Kids sparring lightly in the ring, laughing, learning. Manny turned to Ryan and said softly, "See them? They'll learn faster from your mistake than from your victory. That's how you lead, by sharing what you've learned." Ryan smiled. "I used to think losing was the end," he said. "But now I know. It was the beginning." Manny nodded. That's how real fighters grow. As the event ended, the crowd gathered around. A reporter asked the two men for a quick message to the youth watching online. Ryan looked at the camera first. He said, "To every fighter, every dreamer out there, and remember this. It's not the punch you throw that defines you, it's how you stand when your pride takes a hit. I lost a sparring match, but I found my purpose." Then he turned to Manny, who smiled warmly and added, "And to everyone watching, and respect is stronger than power. Never fight to humiliate. Fight to elevate." The crowd erupted in applause. Some people even had tears in their eyes. It wasn't a fight. It was a moment. As the lights dimmed, Manny placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder and said quietly, "You've already won the most important fight, the one against your ego." Ryan looked down for a second, then met Manny's eyes. "Thank you, sir, for teaching me what strength really means." Manny smiled. "No need to thank me, just teach others the same." That night, as Ryan walked out of the arena, he stopped for a moment. He looked back at the ring, the lights, the kids laughing and training. He took a deep breath. He finally understood. Greatness isn't about who you defeat. It's about who you uplift. He whispered softly to himself. Humility wins. Always. And with that, he walked into the night, not as the man who once mocked a legend, but as the man who learned from one. The video from that charity event would later go viral too, not because of punches or speed, but because of the moment two fighters shared mutual respect. Under that video, the top comments read, "This is the definition of real strength. From pride to purpose. What a journey. Manny Pacquiao, forever a class act. Respect from all over the world, and somewhere, in a quiet corner of the Philippines, Manny Pacquiao scrolled past the clip, smiled and whispered, 'Let the next generation carry it forward.' Because in the end, legends don't just leave trophies. They leave principles. It doesn't take fists to win respect. It takes humility, patience, and heart. The strongest fighter isn't the one who throws the hardest punch. It's the one who knows when not to.